Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So, if you're wondering, no, I haven't forgotten about Village Farms. I haven't done a video on them in a while. So, they just had quarter three today of 2019. So, I'm going to go over those real quick. I'm not going to get into too much detail as it's pretty preliminary information and it's quite in depth, a lot of it. After that, I'm also going to give you my opinion on what I'm going to be doing with the stock and specifically when I think of the marijuana industry. I know it's been a real turbulent time out there, and today that just kind of continued on. Looking at Village Farms, we see that after hours it just got crushed again. As of recording this, it's down about 11%. Right when the news broke, after they released their earnings, they were down I believe nearly 20% at one time. So let's quickly go over the financials. Personally, they weren't great, obviously. It's been a tough time for the sector, but I think that they're getting a little bit overblown. So let's go over the quick bullet points that were released today. So starting out at revenues here, produce sales were at 38.3 million compared to 39.7 million dollars, so they were down slightly there. I think this is the big one here. Net loss before tax of 6.5 million dollars US. I think this is something that's really scared people, but there's a little bit more to it, so we'll get into that. And this included the loss from Pure Sun Farms of about almost $1 million. Because Village Farms owns 50% of that, and this compares with a net loss of tax before tax rather of $2.7 million. So the loss per share was 10 cents compared to a loss of 4 cents. So that was the ouch. There's more to that, so stay here, guys, and we'll get to that. EBITDA loss was 2.4 million. So this was including a positive contribution from Pure Sun Farms of 5 million, so 6.6 million Canadian, so the Village Farms 50% share. So this compares with an EBITDA loss of 2 million, and subsequent to quarter end completed a bought deal offering of 3,059,000 common shares at a price of $9.40 per share. So that just goes along with what they're doing on not issuing debt, issuing equity instead. So now going on to the actual joint venture, Pure Sun Farms. Net sales before Village Farms' 50% share, of course, which consisted entirely of dried cannabis sold predominantly to other licensed producers. So we're not getting, I don't think we're going to be seeing any of the stores, the Ontario stores or anything like that. So that's definitely something that's going to add to a lot in the future. These were 24 million or 18.1 million US. Late in the third quarter, Pure Sun Farms began shipping brand package product to the Ontario Cannabis store. So they abbreviate that OCS. Again, another key point here was sales for the third quarter did not include $7.2 million Canadian that was invoiced to Emerald Health Therapeutics. So here you can read up more on it to see the update on Pure Sun Farms supply agreement. So that's Pure Sun Farms agreement. That's the agreement that Village Farms has with Emerald for Pure Sun Farms. And basically, I mean, it's a bit complex, but Emerald can sell a bunch of it to other LPs on an open market price, but the rest of the proceeds essentially have to go back to Pure Sun Farms, which is a joint venture, and they didn't pay. So they're basically saying you owe $7.2 million. So this is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that, I mean, look how much that would have contributed more. That's basically kind of like a hit the Village is taking, but at the same time they're having major issues with Emerald. So take that one with what you want. So going on here, guys, cost of goods sold per gram was 63 cents Canadian. That's 48 cents per gram American, and gross margin was 69%. So those are pretty healthy metrics there. We have SG&A here, which weren't too interesting. They had a net loss, of course, before the 50% share of $2.4 million Canadian, 1.8 million US, which included, this is very important, the non-cash impact of a net charge of $12.6 million, Canadian, due to a change in the value of biological assets. So that's something we're going to look at when we briefly look at the financial statements here, but that made a huge difference in these quarters. And as far as I'm aware, it's because they're going to a different accounting standard. I believe it's GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now they're on IFRS in Canada, and I think that they have to switch everything over. So they basically have to show, if you know anything about accounting, basically the goods that are in progress. I can't quite remember the term for it. It's basically goods that are in the process of being made, and they have to account for those differently, and they're called biological assets. So that's a huge hit right there. And the EBITDA before Village Farms 50% share was 13.3 million Canadian, a 10.1 million US, making Pure Sunfarms' fourth consecutive quarter of positive EBITDA and resulting in an EBITDA margin of 56%. I'm going to just go over a couple other points they had here, as you guys can read this if you want, but I found them very interesting. So Pure Sunfarms was the top performing brand of dried flower by both kilograms sold and dollar sales with the OCS in October 2019. That's quite a feat, achieving 16% market shares by kilograms sold. Pure Sunfarms dried flower products outsold the second-ranked dried flower products 2-to-1 by kilograms. So pretty impressive. That shows the demand and how much more they're going to be selling when they actually start shipping this and selling it. Again, this was kind of what I talked about the last video here. You can read this. Pure Sunfarm shipped its first order of branded dried cannabis products to the OCS in late September, and they put here followed by multiple reorders. Following a receipt from Health Canada on September 6th that we talked about, of the amendment of its license permitting it to sell the distribute packaged branded dried cannabis products directly to provincial and territorial wholesalers and authorized private retailers in Canada. Another keynote here in BC, Pure Sunfarms sold its first order to the BC Liquor Distribution Branch, which is huge, and they're saying it's being reordered in under 3 weeks to rank among the top 10 brands for sales for all product categories in October. Pure Sunfarms began selling branded, packaged, dried cannabis products to the BCLDB in October, following entry into a supply agreement in September. So this speaks to the quality of their product. We've seen, if you've been following this industry much, that a lot of the big names have had some major issues in terms of quality. Village Farms is growers, as we know, and they have a quality product. Nice to see that they achieved the full run of the annual production of 75,000 kilograms at its 1.1 million square foot Delta 3 greenhouse. I believe that was the goal that they had set. And then they talk on this one here. You can pause and read it if you want, about basically the conversion, about how much million square feet that they have, and where they're going with that. Lots of interesting stuff in the CBD program. I'm not going to read this as it's a lot. If you're interested, I urge you to go to their website and read it, or just read a little bit that I have here. Now let's actually take a look at the consolidated statements of income here. They were a little bit confusing, but I think it's good, rather than me just reading you guys the press release, to actually take a look at it, even if you're not familiar with it. Taking a look at the left side here, 2018 versus 2019. It's good to compare them year over year. The produce sales, as I said, they were actually down, but I mean, look at all the headwinds that were against them, and then those cost of sales just really ate into that, as they were about similar to a year ago. So if they could really cut those down, which I believe that they will in the future, that would definitely help them become more profitable for sure. So you can see that their loss from operations was significant because of that. Like I said, $5.8 million versus roughly $2 million last quarter, and their net income loss was about $5 million versus, again, about $1.9 million. And there's your EPS, basic and diluted. What's even more interesting is looking at the portion of this that matters to Village Farms, because Village Farms is almost getting to the point right now where they're trading at before they were even involved in the marijuana industry. But if you look at just the summarized financial information for Pure Sunfarms, now this is in Canadians and this is in thousands here. Look at the difference in revenue year over year. I mean, we're looking at over almost $24 million versus 247 a year ago. They've really ramped up. But then you see all these items coming in here that just hammered it. a realized future value of the inventory, the change in fair value of the bio asset, just being huge. It just hammered it, right? So when we keep going down the line items down here, now we can see that the net income loss was about 2.4 million versus, about 74,000 last year. So just imagine if we wouldn't have had these headwinds in terms of the the reorganization of the financial statements, in terms of the change of the fair value, and if they would have had the money that Emerald owed them as well. So as promised, guys, I give you my opinion on this. I didn't have the highest expectations going into this, knowing that they haven't really realized their potential in terms of selling to provincial authorities and the provinces. My initial reaction was this was a pretty horrible quarter, but looking into the details a little bit more, as you can see, there's some kind of one-time items that are going to clear themselves out, and it's just kind of a shame that we've had this earnings on this quarter be caught up with all the other stuff, the deaths from vapes that Village Farms is not even involved in. It just pulled the whole industry down. Some questions in demand. That's my biggest concern going forward. Always has been. This is a very small portion of my portfolio, but I've always been concerned with how much demand is there going to be for this kind of stuff. Like, as you guys know, I don't smoke it, I don't use it or anything like that, and I feel like I might have got caught up in the hype a little bit. At 24, I'd over tripled my position, and now I'm getting to a point where I'm almost going to maybe be even soon. So that's a really good lesson for you guys. Even if you do believe in the company, that's greed, and I should know better. I should, I take onus for that. You got to sell those gains when you have them, especially in very speculative companies. And if you don't believe in them in your core, because I don't know the industry that well, I'm not a complete expert on this. I don't use it. I don't know a lot about the industry, but of course, for all the industries or all the companies that I've seen, this one is the biggest position. So if you do believe in the future and you do believe that this marijuana business is going to continue to grow, and we are going to see legalization in the United States, and we're going to see all these headwinds go away, I still think it's a great bet. But to be quite frank, I am getting quite sick of all the marijuana that I've had and just the downturn that it's had, and I just feel like I could have maybe a better utilization of my cash if I had put into something else, and if I still do it. So it depends what happens in the future. I might sell off. I don't really want to, because I do think that there's future gains to be made. But there's a lot of choppy stuff in the meantime. There's gonna be a lot of choppy stuff, and we've seen just these pot stocks get eviscerated, right? So mixed feelings on it, of course. I'm still holding for now. Tomorrow's probably gonna be a bloodbath. And I'd love to know what you guys think. If there's some information that I missed, because I went through this pretty quickly. I don't have a lot of time today to look through this. Let me know. Write a comment down below. I like these videos to be a good area for discussion, so everybody can learn a lot and keep each other updated. So that's going to be it for today, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.